All right, so let's get into part one of the Garo Sero Research Institute's exclusive coverage and interview with the aunt. And they are really sticking to their guns, saying that this was a 6-year relationship. 6-year relationship that started at the end of 2015 when Kim Sae-ron was still a minor, and lasted until 2021, where she was thrown away by Kim Soo-hyun. So the picture that they first talked about was the cheek-to-cheek photo, and then they released another one that she was taking in the same moment where Kim Soo-hyun turns and kisses her on the cheek. And the family says this photo is from when she was 16, her 3rd year of middle school. I said I'm going to filter out a little bit of the breadbasket from Garo Sero, but he's basically saying like, why does it look like he's so tired? What were they doing? So, he's shady, he kind of funny, but, sometimes he goes extreme. For example, some of the circuitous routes he goes that he gets a little bit criticized for is that, but it does color the story, but it creates a lot more area of speculation. He's saying like, well, Kim Soo-hyun, he was out partying at G-Dragon's listening party with like Chung Hae-in, New Jeans Danielle, look at all these other celebrities, and Kim Sae-ron had her funeral and cremation on February 19th, and it wasn't just like not a week, and then he's out partying like this, and then he didn't even go to the funeral. So he's trying to create like a character sketch of Kim Soo-hyun and saying that he's out there partying after this whole tragic incident occurred and didn't have even the courtesy of going to the funeral. On the other hand, the parents were saying like, yeah, he sent flowers and he sent an envelope and basically money in his name or the agency's name. He could have been busy with a schedule, who knows. However, at the same time, he wasn't there. And for such an important person in her life, he wasn't there. I thought he was, and that's what makes me a little bit more suspicious about this from his side, is that a lot of the media reports did say they dropped his name in there as a participant, but you can easily get away with that by saying like, well, we checked the registered logs, and then somebody, on his behalf sent over some condolence money, and then so therefore you could say like, oh, maybe he was there, but we just didn't see him. But apparently confirmed he didn't go. Then he throws in this shade that, oh, Kim Soo-hyun is such a traitor to Korea because he's so pro-China. So in Korea, the politics are pro-USA is the right conservatives, pro-China is the left liberals. And so just to give you some context of, why we're skeptical about this guy, even though we might agree with him, but he's throwing the shade, but with the shade comes some information. So he's saying like, oh, this guy makes about like $90 million a year just in China on advertisements alone. And he is making a big deal out of $700,000. But he was also saying more of like, well, good luck going to China now, Kim Soo-hyun, because they'll lock you up and throw away the key or maybe even do the death penalty. So he gets very colorful in his language. But in terms of Kim Soo-hyun, the character that he's also trying to sketch is that he's like a heartless, cruel person over this money and holding it over Kim Sae-ron when really he doesn't need the money. Of course, his agency said that it was more than just the money. It was more about due process, and they don't want to get accused of financial mismanagement or bribery. But the fact remains is that the communication was not clear to Kim Sae-ron that she didn't have to repay this money if that were actually the truth. Could it have been they are just giving her financial pressure so that it hurts her even more, so she can't really make a name for herself in the entertainment industry again, therefore have a platform, therefore be able to potentially one day speak out about their very inappropriate relationship? So they go over the text messages saying like where she was just heartfelt. She's like shocked by this, wants an explanation, wants to talk, wants more time. Please save me. I'm going to pay you back, but this is just not what we talked about. Now, this next part is information that nobody else was able to get because he had an exclusive phone call interview with the aunt about that March 2024 Instagram posting where she's calling for help. Apparently, she had also been preparing a written post that would essentially spill all the beans about her relationship with Kim Soo-hyun, but she didn't send it out. However, she did send it to her relatives, apparently, over Kakao Talk. So she had this statement prepared, and the family showed it to Garo Sero Research Institute, and they said it was written on March 24th, 2024. Hello, this is Kim Sae-ron. First, I sincerely apologize to everyone affected and confused by my mistake, as well as the broadcast staff. The dating rumors reported earlier were called baseless, but I want to clarify that that's not true. So in other words, she's basically saying that Kim Soo-hyun's side said it was baseless. Remember, that was the original stance from the agency. And she said that in her prepared statement that she never released, no, we did date. The photo uploaded to my story was from 2016, and our relationship lasted from November 19th, 2015 to July 7th, 2021. So had she released this back in March 2024, she herself directly would be accusing Kim Soo-hyun of dating a minor. She said that when it was time to renew her contract with YG and look for a new agency, she discussed a contract with her ex-lover's company and signed with gold medalist without much negotiation. I worked tirelessly on casting new talent and visual directing, but I received no fair compensation for it. She helped build up the business. She helped support her man. She helped support the guy that she thought was going to be her future husband. So she did all of this work for Kim Soo-hyun and didn't get paid. And then she said, unlike my previous agency renewals, this contract renewal came with a loan condition. I don't know if that is, but I think it probably has some significance with the financial situation that she ended up in. And then she said, when it was time to renew again after the drunk driving incident, I reached out to the agency and Kim Soo-hyun, but all contact was cut off. That's even worse, right? It's like a no face-to-face. It still may be disappointing, but there's some respect on both sides in that. When you ghost somebody like this, and then later on send a threatening legal letter, that doesn't make Kim Soo-hyun's side look respectful and thereby credible. Then they go into a lengthy discussion about how reporters were contacting her cousin and asking for statements, during this whole supposed did she date Kim Soo-hyun, or is she a psycho Delulu just pretending she's having a relationship with Kim Soo-hyun? And the main point of this discussion in this interview was the Garo Sero Research Institute guy was saying that, look, they're manipulating entertainment reporters. They have entertainment reporters on a leash or on a payroll or like favors, and they are the ones that gave the phone number of the cousin or Kim Sae-ron to the reporters. Like Kim Soo-hyun is sicking these reporters on to Kim Sae-ron to make her life worse. That's the accusation. But Kim Soo-hyun's side says that that is not true at all. But the main point, the main question is, not like, who inappropriate Kakao talk or being harassed by a reporter, is did Kim Soo-hyun try to facilitate this media smear and pain and then public hate onto his ex-lover? And why? So the aunt said that they didn't even notice that Kim Sae-ron had decided to end her life on Kim Soo-hyun's birthday, that they were just all out of it. But then they said, yeah, it does look like it was a sign. The mother can't even speak right now. She's trembling, can't eat, has no energy, can't sleep. She's wandering, chasing after her daughter. So it, came upon this auntie's shoulders to go to the public. Kind of as a side note, don't really want to say, but basically the image also to begin with of the parents weren't that good. However, at this time, I don't think that's worth going into unless you're really questioning like the motives of the parents. But the aunt says that we're not doing this for any financial gain. We don't want anything, but what they do, they don't want anything like as in like money type of stuff, but they do want harassment of the family to stop. They want to clear Kim Sae-ron's name, and then they want an apology from Kim Soo-hyun and acknowledgement, I guess, of the full timeline of their relationship. So Kim Soo-hyun's side says that the photos that were posted, they're real, but they're not of the dates that the family claims. We'll get into that later, but essentially during this interview, the auntie was asked about these photos and when were they taken? And they continued to say that it was when she was a minor. And they said, anyways, we have tons more photos than this one. So right now, in some ways, it's like a he said, she said about the photos, because we haven't had a third-party forensics team analyze the metadata. But once that happens, I think it's essentially a done deal. It will definitively prove the date of when they were together. Whether that translates into evidence that's accepted by a court, if this goes into sort of a criminal situation, we'll have to, ask the lawyers for that. But in terms of proving who is lying right now, I think that's going to be extremely easy for the family to prove, or it'll be easy to debunk what the family has been saying once we have the metadata from the photos. So after part 1, Garo Sero asked for an apology from Kim Soo-hyun. They didn't, so then they released part 2 the next day. The Garo Sero Research Institute guy was essentially patting himself all types of ways on the back and the front, saying, I broke this story, and look, now all of Korean mainstream media suddenly has the cojones to cover this. And not only that, all across the world from international media, they're commenting on this story and writing stories of their own. So yes, Mr. Garo Sero Research Institute, man, you deserve many. Here, pat, 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 pat. Can we move on? Then he's going over the fallout that advertisers seem to be cutting off ties or being a little bit vague about whether the upcoming renewals will happen or not. At the beginning, definitely before Friday, it was definitely a lot of companies left it vague. But on Friday, I just heard that Prada made a very definitive choice to end their sponsorship of Kim Soo-hyun. So not going in the right direction for Kim Soo-hyun. Okay, then he goes into Kim Soo-hyun's face, especially his eyes, give off bad vibes. I never liked it. Or I liked it, but then when I looked at the photo again, it doesn't look... So, okay, it's sort of like kitchen table talk, but That's why this guy gets in trouble. And then he goes on an anti-China rant saying that Kim Soo-hyun and Chun Ji-hyun are traitors to Korea for earning a lot of money in China and, distorting history. I don't want to go into it. Then he's also saying that Kim Soo-hyun's manager a while back was arrested for habitual SA on women, following women home and things like that, and making the implication that he surrounds himself with sketchy people. The agency said that, that wasn't his main exclusive manager. There's other people, but then Garo Sero Research Institute guy just, didn't like that. So very, very relevant point in part 2 was he answered the question whether or not Kim Soo-hyun read that very tearful, painful text message by Kim Sae-ron. And his evidence, he says, from the family says that the text message was read. So it was a complete ghosting, that Kim Soo-hyun saw the text message and it wasn't just never received. It was received and read, and he never responded. So here's more of his far-right breadbasket coming in, but maybe somewhat, it adds a color to this story. So now he's talking about the lawyers for Kim Soo-hyun as LKB partners. Mr. Garo Sero Research Institute saying that, this is the law firm that's pushing for Yoon Suk-yeol's, the president of South Korea, did the martial law, his impeachment, so that they're extreme Democratic Party lawyers. And so this I think is interesting to know now in case it turns into sort of like this whole bunny uncle situation. Where are these, webs, behind the scenes? And who are the kingmakers, the connectors, between this entertainment world and this lawmaker world? And so because this guy is so hell-bent on supporting the right and then demolishing lawyers and politicians on the left, he's bringing this up. But it is a little bit interesting because the lawyers that sent the debt repayment letter, apparently, according to Garo Sero, is this LKB Partners is very heavily involved in the impeachment campaign, and thereby saying Democratic Party, and thereby pro-China, thereby, the rest of the stuff in his breadbasket, including the croutons. Then we have some discussions about the letter in 2018 that Kim Soo-hyun sent to Kim Sae-ron that she saved from his time in the military. We'll get into that. A postcard in 2019 from Paris that went to the family. And then the family said that that is when they realized, oh my goodness, are they dating? They shouldn't date. Of course, she's already officially an adult then. But then when she told her family oh, but he wants to marry me, it seems like that's when they just tacitly approved. Then they also said that, hey, he even sent her photos from when he was in the military. And the guy was a 30-year-old jerk sending them to a high schooler. And then also that, a photo of him getting an IV drip for, fortification and health. Sending that to Kim Sae-ron, saying that that's kind of creepy, that's kind of weird, it's out of line. We'll go into the letters and the postcard because it is a little bit odd. So the reason why he also brought up this law firm was saying that it's using this giant political force to crush her in order to protect and save the bigger fish, the Kim Soo-hyun, who's a huge bankable star that also, probably generates money and connections that then feeds back into the Democratic Party. And in terms of what's extremely relevant to this situation was that the aunt said that Kim Sae-ron always said, they're making it so I can't live in this country. If she tried working, they'd block her. Who they are, maybe a little bit, she didn't specify, but she said it in a sense that it was just kind of like a bigger force, sort of like a cadre of people who are going to blacklist her. Now, of course, Mr. Garo Sero Research Institute guy definitely wants to point the finger before really connecting all the dots that, it must be this law firm, it must be the Democratic Party. So that's where he sort of gets in trouble, but he may be spotting the smoke. So we want to hear directly from the aunt's mouth about what did he say and what happened. So essentially they said, like, you know what? He ruined a family. They're pissed. And they want to clarify that they have the evidence and they knew at some certain point that they were in a relationship. But the, Garo Sero research guy was saying, like, if she dated him from middle school, why didn't y'all families stop it? And they said they didn't know when she was in middle school. But in March 2000, when she said all of this information, sent it all a draft of, she probably was drafting it and asking like her family, this is a pretty big like bombshell announcement type of thing I want to do. Should I? And family probably said like, oh my God, you essentially like what happened is bad, but you essentially are going to accuse him of, well, what he did, but who knows? They might not have been able to do that. But they said that she detailed it from 2015. They didn't know when she was in middle school, but before he went to the military, he kept contacting her. So they did know that he contacted her when she was young and still in high school at that point. And even sending the military photos, that was odd. And when she was in high school, she said to her mom, I'm dating someone. And then they tried to stop it. But Kim Soo-hyun, according to them, was pursuing her because she didn't really like him in the beginning and saying that he loved her. And that, dangling of a carrot, he'd take care of her at his company, take responsibility. And they said she left a good agency, YG, for his agency. She had a lot of other offers. And he kept her hooked by saying, this is real. Let's get married. Okay, part 3 in a nutshell didn't have as much information. It was a lot more circumstantial. It was a very carb-heavy meal, okay? We're just saying that it's a breadbasket of anti or far-right kind of talking points weaved into this. But essentially, he's just saying that you guys should sign the petition, and his lawyers are the same as the ones representing the impeachment efforts, and sponsors are rattled. But after the broadcast was the more interesting statement. So the latest statement by Garo Sero Research Institute after they read the statement on Friday from Kim Soo-hyun's team saying that they'll release more photos and even videos and one of a particular boyfriend shirtless doing the dishes at her house. That's the threat.